Good morning, Veritas All-Stars. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. Here is the All-Star Challenge problem, number 4 on your Google Classroom assignments. I'll show you the actual assignment itself because I could not draw those squares as well as I should have been able to. So pause here, but you should be able to just find it in your Google Classroom. So it says this question has 3 parts. Be sure to label each part of your response. So it happens to be question number 4. Olga, Dave, and Peter each built a right rectangular prism using 1-inch cubes as shown. So notice that every cube in all of these rectangular prisms are 1 inch. So the dimension of all of them is 1 inch. So it's 1 inch this way, it's 1 inch this way, and it's 1 inch that way, right? Let's see, the length, the width, and the height of each cube is 1 inch in each direction. Okay? So part A says, what's the volume in cubic inches of Olga's prism? This one here, Olga's prism. Part B says, what is the difference in volume in cubic inches between Dave's prism and Olga's prism? Show or explain how you got your answer. So we got to find Dave's and find the difference in volume between Dave's and Olga's prisms for part B. And C says, Peter claims that the volume of his prism is 16 cubic inches. Is Peter correct? Explain why or why not. So notice that B and C both say show or explain how you got your answer for B, and C says explain why or why not. So we got to really be careful to make sure that we clearly say or show how we got our answer for both of those. All right, so now I have them written over here on this paper, and I'll keep going back to the pictures so that we can find the volume of all 3 of them. Okay? So let's go back to A. It says, what's the volume in cubic inches? So it's going to be cubic inches. That's inches to the 3rd power, or inches times inches times inches. It's inches times itself this many times, so 3 times. Okay, so what is the volume in cubic inches of Olga's prism? Okay, on your computer you have to write inches with the little arrow and then 3. And that's how you can show an exponent as this little caret arrow. Which is the number 6 on the keyboard, right? If you push Shift and 6, you get this little arrow, and then you put a 3 there. So that's how you put it on your computer, but it's cubic inches. This is how you'll see it. All right, so it says, what is the volume of Olga's prism? So volume is length times width times height. They give you that on your reference sheet. We're looking at Olga's prism. Yep, so let's look for Olga. Here is her prism here. So the length is 2, because there's 2 of these cubic inches, so 2 this way, 2 times. The width would be like how wide it is this way. There's 1, 2 going that way, times the height is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to do 2 times 4 to find the volume. So the volume is 2 times 2 is 4, and then we'll do that times 4, right? So we did that times 4, and then 4. Since 2 times 2 is 4, then we do 4 times 4, which is 16. So 16 cubic inches. And the reason why it's cubic inches is because we did 2 inches times 2 inches times 4 inches. So we multiplied inches times inches times inches, which is cubic inches. Literally a cube, where each dimension is 1 inch, right? Let's see. Okay, so a cubic inch. So think about how many cubes there are, and if you count them all, there are 16, and that's the way we do it, right? So if you look, like there's 4 in each layer. See the top, you can see all 4, and then there's 4 in that layer, and 4 in the second layer, which is 8, and 4 more in the third layer, which is 12, and 4 more is 16, even though you can't see them all. Okay, so the volume of Olga's prism is 16 inches cubed, or 16 cubic inches. Okay, now let's go to part B. What is the difference in volume in cubic inches? So again, it's going to be volume is cubic inches because there's inches times inches times inches to find volume. So what's the difference, we've been using this word a lot, between Dave's prism and Olga's prism? Show or explain how you got your answer. So for this one, I'm going to very carefully explain or show my answer over here. Okay, so what's the difference in volume in cubic inches between Dave's prism and Olga's prism? So we know that Olga Olga's prism is 16. So now we got to find Dave's volume. So Dave's volume, let's say volume is length times width times height. So volume is, the length is 4 times the width is 3 times the height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're doing 4 times 3 times 5 to find the volume. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 5 is 60. And it's cubic inches because this was 4 inches, times 3 inches, times 5 inches, which makes cubic inches, because you did inches times inches times inches. Okay, and again, there, think about it, an inch this way, an inch this way, and an inch that way, all 3 dimensions. Okay, so the volume of Dave's is 60. So the question says, what's the difference between Dave's and Olga's? So to find the difference, we're going to subtract. So we're going to take 60, we're going to take Dave's, and we're going to find the difference by subtracting. Olga's is 16. So 60 minus 16. We have 0 ones. You can't take 6 away, so you're going to borrow. Take 1 from the tens place and add 10 to the ones place. Just trading. 1 10. Take 1 away there. Add 10 to the ones place. 10 minus 6 is 4, and 5 minus 1 is 4. I'm struggling to write these today. So 44 is the answer. 60 minus 16. The difference between these two people's prisms is 44. And it's cubic inches, because we were doing cubic inches minus cubic inches. And we still have cubic inches. That's the same unit of measurement. Okay, so the answer for B is 44 cubic inches. Now you could show your work like this. Here's Dave's, here's Olga's. There is the difference, right? But even if you do this, even if you show this, you should still write a sentence or two just explaining. I found the volume of Dave's, which was 60. I found a volume of Olga's, which was 16. When you find the difference, you subtract. So I got a volume, a difference of 44 cubic inches. Okay, so I want to read what you wrote. This isn't good enough as an answer for an open response question like this. You're going to have to write it in full sentences, and your teachers will go over this when you talk about this problem on this day, right? You're not just going to put 44 inches because it says to show or explain. So you really carefully need to explain what you did. But we already did it, so you just explain. I did length times width times height, and you explain how you ended up getting the difference between those two. Okay, so it only takes a couple of sentences, but you really have to read that over carefully and make sure that what you wrote makes sense. So this is something you're going to have to do on your own. If you give me just this, I'm going to ask you to explain and make sure you explain. Okay, this video I just can't, it'll take too long for me to show you that. So I want to see what you guys are able to do. All right, let's get to the answer for C. Peter claims that the volume of his prism is 16 cubic inches. He claims that. We know all about that from ELA, making a claim. So that's his claim, is that his volume is 16 cubic inches. Is Peter correct? Explain why or why not. So is he correct is the first question, and then make sure that you explain why he is or why he isn't correct. All right, so he says 16. Let's find Peter. Here's Peter's prism. Volume is length times width times height. So the length of Peter's prism is 4. The width of his prism is 4. And the height of his prism is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a cube, or it's 4 inches times 4 inches times 4 inches. So that's what we're going to do to find the volume. Length times width times height. 4 times 4 times 4. So 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4. If you don't know that in your head, you probably don't. You just do the multiplication, but the answer is 64. 16 times 4 is 64. All right, so 64, since it's inches times inches times inches, 4 inches times 4 inches times 4 inches, we did inches times inches times inches, which is cubic inches, or inches to the third power. All right, so those are the answers for these problems. A was 16 cubic inches. B was 44 cubic inches, but you need to make sure you explain or show clearly how you got that answer. And C is 64 cubic inches. And it says, is he correct? No, he's not correct. And I want to read what you wrote about why he is not correct, because you have to explain why or why not. So it's very important to answer the question. Is he correct? No, he is not correct. And then you got to explain why his answer of 16 was incorrect and why the correct answer actually is 64 cubic inches. All right, that's it. Have a great day, everybody. See ya.